A 10-year-old kid is down on his knees outside the fancy front doors of Mainland Bank, shining shoes for a nickel a pair. His name is Bernard Garrett, and to anyone walking by, he looks like just another poor kid hustling for spare change. But nobody has a clue what he is actually doing down there. He is not polishing leather. He is polishing his mind. His ears are wide open like a radar dish, quietly soaking up every word these rich bankers say about their million-dollar deals and the secrets behind their business. And the second his shift is done, he pulls out a notebook he keeps hidden, the kind of notebook that could get him in serious trouble if the wrong person ever saw it, and writes down every single formula these rich men just handed him for free. One afternoon, Bernard is crouched by a window, trying to crack the code on something specific. How do these guys figure out the real value of a mortgage building or a piece of land? He is reverse engineering their entire mindset. That is when a client's driver catches him red-handed. The driver chews him out hard and tells him to quit spying on white folks' business. That same evening, Bernard's father flips through that secret notebook, and his jaw hits the floor. He realizes right then and there that his son has a 1 in a million mind. But then comes the gut punch. His father tells him, heavy-hearted, that the odds of him ever getting rich are slim to none, because white folks are never going to let him get ahead. Not in this town. Not in this country, the way things stand. 15 years go by. Bernard has worked his tail off and saved up some real money. He packs up his wife and his little boy and leaves the suffocating, hard-nosed world of Texas behind for the city of dreams, Los Angeles. They move in with his wife's uncle, crammed into a tiny, stuffy room, paying rent just to have a roof over their heads. The uncle does not let up, constantly riding Bernard, telling him he should just go get a factory job like everybody else. But Bernard has bigger plans rattling around in his head. He wants to own a piece of the Los Angeles real estate market. The uncle laughs him right out of the room. Later that night, while Bernard is putting his son to bed, the uncle pulls his niece, Bernard's wife, aside to talk some sense into her. But she stands her ground, proud as anything, defending her husband without blinking. Bernard, standing just outside the door, hears every word, and he makes her a quiet promise. He's going to get them out of this cramped little room, and soon. Starting the very next day, Bernard throws himself into it completely. He studies every inch of the Los Angeles real estate market, haggles over prices, and burns through sleepless night after sleepless night. Eventually, he sets his sights on an apartment building. There's just one massive problem. The building sits smack in the middle of an all-white neighborhood, and it needs a ton of repair work. Bernard has just enough cash to cover the purchase price and not a dime more. His wife is stunned and asks him straight up why he would even go after a white neighborhood in the first place. Bernard's vision is crystal clear, though. He explains that black neighborhoods are already packed wall to wall. There's no breathing room left, so they've got to expand into new territory. His wife suggests they find an investor, and she takes him down to the Plantation Jazz Club, owned by a guy named Joe Morris, a wealthy black playboy and an old acquaintance of hers. But during the meeting, Joe puts on a real show, showing off and poking fun at Bernard. Bernard's pride flares up instantly. He storms out, furious, and tells his wife on the way out that he is not doing business with some arrogant show-off, let alone borrowing his money. His wife tries to explain that the Playboy act is just a mask Joe wears for the world. Underneath it, he is sharp, trustworthy, and has connections all the way up to the mayor's office. But Bernard cannot get past it, partly because he is a Playboy and partly maybe because his wife already knows him so well. With no other option left, Bernard goes straight to the building's owner, an Irishman who is asking $40,000 for the place. Bernard fights tooth and nail to talk him down, but gets nowhere. So he pulls out his ace card instead. He offers to split the payment into 2 installments, part of it right now in cash, and the rest once the building is fully rented out. The Irishman asks where on earth he is going to find tenants. Bernard tells him straight, black doctors, lawyers, and teachers, good hardworking people looking to get out of overcrowded slums and into something decent. He says he can bring every one of them right to that building's front door. Bernard's boldness and his head for numbers genuinely impress the Irishman. But the guy is too nervous to take the risk and turns him down flat. Just as Bernard is about to walk out the door, his sharp eyes catch something on the Irishman's desk, a calendar with the name of a bank manager scribbled on it, a guy named Mr. Reed. That same afternoon, Bernard walks straight into that bank. The receptionist looks him dead in the eye and lies through her teeth, desperate to get this black man out of her lobby as fast as possible. She tells him Mr. Reed is out. Bernard, calm as can be, points out that his eyesight is just fine and he can read the nameplate sitting right there on the man's desk from where he is standing. Flustered, the receptionist snaps back that her tongue just slipped and that Mr. Reed cannot see him right now regardless. Bernard does not budge. He plants himself outside the bank for hours, waiting it out on the sidewalk. When a manager finally walks out at the end of the day, Bernard stops him cold, lays out the whole deal on the spot, and asks for the loan. It still does not work. By that evening, Bernard is completely worn down and just about ready to throw in the towel. Then the phone rings. It is the Irishman on the line, sounding pretty annoyed. He asks if Bernard used his name to try and get a loan out of Mr. Reed at the bank. Bernard admits it straight up. Yes. But what comes next nearly brings Bernard to tears. The Irishman tells him the manager is going to approve the loan after all, because he himself, the Irishman, has agreed to personally guarantee it. He says Bernard's drive and sheer stubbornness convinced him that a guy like that simply does not lose in business. Real quick, before we keep going, if you're even a little bit invested in how this ends, hit subscribe now so you do not lose this video halfway through. It genuinely helps the channel grow, and it takes you 2 seconds. Once the deal is locked in, Bernard's wife takes him right back to Joe Morris's jazz club to celebrate their small victory. This time, Joe comes over to Bernard himself, dropping the act and talking man to man. Joe admits, from the heart, that nothing makes him happier than watching another black man succeed, and he tells Bernard he sees something big in him. Not long after, Bernard and his cousin are out doing some basic repairs on the new building when a white tenant spots them and immediately starts shouting. Bernard calmly explains that he owns the place now. The old woman snaps back that this is a white building and there is no way he could be the owner. That is when Matt, a friend of Bernard's cousin, shows up. Bernard turns to him and asks if he would have any problem working for him. Matt just shrugs and says, "Money is green, man. Color is not something he is worried about." A few hours later, the old woman's complaint brings the cops knocking. The police show up insisting that some black guy is pretending to be the owner. When Bernard tells them he genuinely is the owner, they start laughing in his face. But the second Bernard pulls the actual deed out of his pocket, their smiles disappear fast. That evening, Bernard moves into one of the apartments in the building himself. The old woman cannot stomach living under the same roof as a black man, so she packs up and leaves the very next day. The unit does not stay empty for long, though. A wealthy black woman moves in not long after. Bernard pays the Irishman back every single cent, right on schedule. The Irishman becomes a genuine fan of Bernard's mind and offers him a full 50-50 partnership. Their plan is simple and brilliant. Back in that era, Americans were not exactly thrilled about doing business with Irish folks either, so they decide Bernard will handle all the math and the negotiations behind the scenes. But when it's time to sign on the dotted line, the Irishman steps forward with his white face leading the way. Bernard brings the brains. The Irishman brings the face that gets doors opened. This secret duo takes over the market completely. Their business takes off like a rocket, and Bernard celebrates by buying his wife a beautiful new house. But the streak of good luck does not last. The Irishman dies suddenly. When Bernard goes to collect his half of the partnership from the Irishman's widow, she hands him a check worth a fraction of what it is actually worth and makes it crystal clear she has no intention of doing business with a black man, period. She warns him flat out that if he tries anything clever, he will not get a single cent more because their entire partnership was a handshake deal, nothing on paper, nothing she has to honor. Bernard is trapped in an impossible bind. Either he quietly accepts the scraps she is throwing him, or he takes her to court and almost certainly loses. Looking for a witness, Bernard goes to the bank manager, but the manager refuses to even meet with him since he is already working closely with the Irishman's widow. Bernard storms out of that bank deeply discouraged, but on his way out, a huge sign on the front of the building catches his eye. That entire skyscraper is packed wall to wall with dozens of bank offices. And right there, out of the ashes of total humiliation, an absolutely insane and brilliant idea is born, the kind of idea that is about to change American history. Why not just buy the whole bank building outright? That way, not a single banker inside those walls could ever look down on him again, because they would be working under his roof. Fueled by wounded pride and this masterstroke of an idea, Bernard goes straight to Joe Morris and lays out the proposal to buy the entire building. Joe, ever the careful businessman, hesitates. He points out that there is not a single bank building in all of downtown Los Angeles owned by a black man, and there's a very specific reason for that. He tells Bernard to convince him this is not pure madness. Bernard breaks down the strategy. If they own the building, the white bankers working under their roof cannot turn around and deny them loans anymore. And even bigger than that, banks hold every secret in the real estate game, giving them the keys to take over the entire city's market. The sheer audacity and genius of it floors Joe, and he shakes Bernard's hand on what is about to become a historic deal. Now they need a white face to front the whole operation, someone who can stand in public as the bank's owner, while Bernard and Joe quietly pull every string behind the scenes. They decide Matt is going to be their front man for this massive play. Matt panics immediately, insisting he cannot possibly pull off a role this big. Even Joe doubts whether a simple, easygoing guy like Matt has what it takes. But Bernard insists he can do it. The next day, Matt is sitting at a cafe, looking pretty down in the dumps. His old schoolmate, who is working there as a waitress, notices and asks what is wrong. Matt tells her he has been offered a partnership and cannot decide whether to take it. The moment the word partnership comes out of his mouth, her whole demeanor toward him shifts, suddenly full of respect and admiration. That small taste of being looked up to gives Matt's confidence a massive boost, and he commits fully to becoming their front man in this high-stakes game. The training begins immediately. Joe teaches Matt how to play golf and how to walk, talk, and carry himself like old money. Meanwhile, Bernard drills him on the complicated formulas behind real estate valuation. At first, Matt fumbles constantly, frustrating Joe to no end. But slowly his photographic memory starts kicking in and doing the heavy lifting. Within a month, Matt is out on the golf course, casually crunching million-dollar calculations between swings. Joe sets up a match at a prestigious golf club, where Matt just happens to meet Charles Renault, the actual owner of the bank building. Bernard preps Matt thoroughly for a final lunch meeting with Renault, and Matt's mathematical sharpness and rehearsed lines blow Renault away completely, talking him down from $2.5 million all the way to $1.5 million for the building. After that win, they do not slow down for a second. They start buying up buildings in bulk across the most exclusive parts of Los Angeles, neighborhoods where black people were not even allowed to set foot before. They end up owning 177 buildings, and their influence grows so massive that Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson himself shows up as a guest at the grand opening of one of their apartment complexes. Matt, riding high on all of it, marries that waitress and starts living the high life himself. It is now 1963, and Bernard has become a wildly successful and wealthy businessman. He travels back to a small town in Texas to visit his father. Texas at this time is still one of the most hardcore segregated states in the country, where hostility toward black people has not budged an inch. His father tells him how proud he is. Bernard tries to explain how much easier life has become for black folks out in California. But his father cuts straight through it with a hard truth. He says, "I do not think this is California, son." Those words hit something deep inside Bernard. The next day, dressed in an expensive suit, Bernard walks the streets of his old hometown with his son. His boy is rattled, watching people stare at them like they have committed some terrible crime just by existing on the sidewalk. Bernard tells him quietly, "I'm sorry you have to see this." As they keep walking, they pass right by Mainland Bank, the very same spot where young Bernard used to shine shoes and quietly collect a fortune in secrets from rich men who never even noticed him. He stops and asks the local shoe shine boy what he charges. The kid's answer cuts straight through Bernard. "I only shine shoes for white folks," the boy says. That night, Bernard tells his wife he wants to buy a bank, right there in Texas, so black families finally get a real shot at a decent life. The white bankers in Texas were deliberately slapping outrageous interest rates and impossible terms on black borrowers, making sure nobody could ever actually pay off a loan. The goal was never subtle. Keep black people from ever building a business of their own, keep them permanently dependent. This was not just unfair. It was a calculated, ugly scheme designed to lock people out of their own futures. His wife looks in his eyes and sees that fire she knows all too well. Once Bernard sets his mind to something, there is no stopping him. They bring Matt in to meet Robert Florence, the actual owner of Mainland Bank, with Joe tagging along, disguised as a driver. Florence agrees to sell the business at an agreed price on one condition. His son, Robert Florence Jr., stays on as a credit specialist inside the bank, and Florence himself keeps a 20% stake. Everybody seems good with it, until the suspicious son starts firing off pointed questions, like why are Matt's actual partners nowhere to be seen in this deal? Who exactly are Bernard Garrett and Joseph Morris? Matt smooths it over, telling him the truth is, they're simply too wealthy to be bothered with the small stuff, which is exactly why they put him front and center. The lie lands perfectly. The deal closes, and the bank is finally theirs. Bernard moves fast, quietly reaching out to local black pastors across town, asking them to recommend trustworthy people in their congregations who genuinely need loans, under the strict condition that none of this gets out. Slowly, black families start getting approved for home and business loans, and the bank starts turning a real profit. But this success is about to stir up a storm. Florence Jr., who still sees himself as the bank's rightful heir, starts pressuring Matt hard, demanding to know exactly who these new loans are going to. He starts digging around in secret, and late one night, he spots Matt quietly meeting up with Bernard to hand over progress reports. Meanwhile, Matt's wife is growing more and more uneasy living in Texas, convinced that Matt is nothing more than a puppet dancing on strings pulled by Bernard and Joe. She pushes back hard, telling Matt straight up, "You said you were a partner, but partners do not collect a salary, they own things outright." Her words plant a seed of insecurity in Matt, and to prove he is more than just a hired face, he promises her the next bank they take over will be entirely his own. The very next day, Florence Jr. confronts Bernard with a direct threat. He warns that if the white customers ever find out who really owns this bank, they will pull every last dollar out and the whole thing will collapse overnight. When Bernard does not seem rattled enough by the threat, Florence plays his final card and shows up waving a legal notice from federal banking regulators. He had quietly tipped off the government, and now a massive investigation is heading straight for the bank. The danger is escalating fast, but fueled by his wife's pressure, Matt digs in his heels and insists on buying a second bank, the Bank of Marlin, wanting to transfer every single one of mainland's black customer loans over to this smaller institution under his own name. Bernard, ever the careful strategist, hates this idea. He knows running two banks at once is way more than they can realistically handle. But Matt resorts to outright blackmail, telling them flatly, "Make me the owner or I walk." Bernard and Joe have no choice but to give in. Matt officially becomes the owner of the new bank. Meanwhile, Bernard's wife starts working undercover as a cleaning lady inside the bank just to keep a close eye on Matt's day-to-day activity. Bernard gives Matt one very clear instruction: double-check every single loan and only work with lawyers they can fully trust. But riding high on his own ego, Matt ignores every bit of that advice and ends up hiring the lawyer Florence personally recommended, the very same Florence who had already snitched on them once before. Without digging into the fine print, Matt puts on his most confident face and signs off on a stack of loan participation agreements. No questions asked. Then the call comes in from Florence. Federal officials have officially arrived at Mainland Bank to investigate, because word has leaked that Bernard and Joe are the true owners behind everything. At nearly the exact same moment, government auditors show up unannounced at the Marlin Bank as well, tearing through the files. Bernard, still dressed in his janitor disguise, tries desperately and quietly to feed Matt the right answers to keep him from sinking them all. But by then, the whole thing is already spiraling out of control. The officials uncover a stack of massive loans that go way beyond what this tiny bank was legally allowed to issue. Citing serious regulatory violations, the government shuts the bank's operations down immediately. Their entire empire comes crashing down like a house of cards, and the moment they step outside the bank, the FBI is waiting to slap handcuffs on every one of them. The case lands in the middle of Washington's political machine, and it quickly stops being about justice and starts being about optics. Senators want to use this case as leverage to tighten banking regulations even further, making absolutely sure no other Bernard Garrett could ever rise up and pull off something like this again. Facing a 50-year prison sentence, Matt cracks under the pressure and turns on his own partners, testifying that Bernard had personally pressured him into all of it. The senators throw Bernard a lifeline too. Admit you exploited the law for personal gain, and you walk free. Refuse, and prison is guaranteed. But Bernard Garrett was never the kind of man to fold under pressure. On the second day of the hearing, Bernard took out his old janitor uniform. Bernard looks the entire courtroom dead in the eye and tells them this was the only way a black man could ever set foot inside a Texas bank as anything other than to help. His statement lands like a thunderclap, a direct and furious challenge to a system built entirely on racial discrimination. The outcome is exactly what everyone feared. The government seizes every asset they own. The jury finds them guilty and sentences Bernard to 3 years behind bars, while Matt walks free without a single consequence. But Bernard's sacrifice does not disappear into nothing. His act of rebellion shakes the entire country to its core, and 3 years later, Congress passes the Fair Housing Act, making it officially illegal anywhere in America to deny someone a home or a loan because of the color of their skin. When Bernard finally walks out of prison, he looks like he has lost everything. But there is a quiet, knowing smile on his face that nobody around him can explain. Joe and Bernard's wife have no idea why he seems so at peace. Then the truth comes out. The night before the verdict came down, Matt had called Bernard, finally admitting how badly he had messed everything up. Bernard already knew exactly what was coming the next day, but the ruling would go against them, and the government was about to seize every asset they had left. So Bernard asked Matt for one final favor. Instead of trying to hide what little money remained, he handed every last dollar over to Matt, and told him to use it to buy a house in the Bahamas before the government could get its hands on any of it. And that is exactly where this story ends, not in the dusty, segregated streets of Texas, but on a quiet stretch of blue Bahamian coastline, in a house where these two old friends finally got to live life completely free, entirely on their own terms. So that is the real story behind the rise and fall and the final quiet victory of Bernard Garrett, a man who decided that if the system would not let him in, he would just buy the whole building and let the system answer to him instead. If this story hit you the way it hit us, do not forget to drop a like and let us know in the comments which part stuck with you the most. And if you're into powerful, true stories like this one, hit that subscribe button so you never miss the next one. We will catch you in the next video.